Hi everyone, my name is Anne. Thanks for tuning into Art on the Creek today. You know what I have here in front of me is a journal that I made, a watercolor journal, and it's expandable. It's got these nice big rings in it. I just repurposed a notebook and I realized that these pockets, when I cut them off with a spiral, the pockets are open right there. So I'm just going to finish this up with score tape. The entire process for how to make this journal is very simple. Is in another video, and I will put a little card for that up in the corner here if it's already aired. I'm a bit of a mental jumble right now, I will confess, because I am trying to get ready. Our family's going to go on a little vacation, so I'm trying to get a lot of things done before we head out the door. But I will show you how well this score tape works. Now this pocket here, it's probably PVC materials, and it's just what you would find in a standard school supply notebook. I really like it because it's water resistant, and we're just going to put some of this score tape. Now I'm using 1/2-inch score tape here. It comes in a lot of different widths, and it also comes in more of a generic type of brand, I guess is all I need to say. Sorry. But the bottom line to this stuff is it's great. Wherever you would glue something down, you can use this in place of it, and I really like it. I think it's pretty easy to use, and I will just get this adhered here. And this PVC, right, like it's kind of tricky. I didn't want to put a glue down there and maybe have the glue not work, but this score tape will definitely hold that closed, and so now I can use this pocket for memorabilia or smaller paintings. That is one disadvantage of this style that I made. The paper that is in it actually won't fit in this pocket, if that makes sense, because now that I've got the score tape in here, it probably takes up some of the width. It might fit, but you know, it's homemade, and I just wanted to do it to repurpose something and to show you how to make a journal without sewing a binding. Now I have another video coming up. I'm sorry, I don't know when it's going to air, but there will be another video, and I'll put them both together in a playlist of how to make a journal with a no-sew binding. I've got another method. This is super simple. This is just a hole punch and a 3-ring binder. The reason I really like this particular method is because if you're using the thick watercolor paper, if you are using the heavier one, the 600 GSM, 300 pound, something like that, then this style of watercolor journal will work for you. And I don't know how many of you knew, but watercolor paper, you know, if you hold on for it too long, it can go bad. The sizing in it can just disappear and kind of not work for you anymore. So don't consider your art supplies so precious that you can't use them. Use what you buy. Be happy with it. Use it up, because that's what it's intended for. And if you wait and hold on to it for a really long time, then it just won't work for you anymore. So you might as well put it to good use. I've just got my little fountain pen here, and I'm just going to write the year 2024 because I want to make a few of these and try and keep a regular journal of some things. Now right now the paper that I have in here is a fluid hot press. It's not my favorite paper, but it works great for ink. So maybe I will start working on this one in Inktober. I don't know. I'm going to take it on the trip with me, so we'll see what happens there. I actually made that journal and then found this one from Lightwish. It's on Amazon, and I'll put a link to it. It's just a little PVC notebook cover, just like a regular planner that you would buy. It has these 6 punches here, and it comes with watercolor paper. You can see the watercolor paper has a pretty decent texture on it, cold press on one side. Definitely, well, technically it's cold press on this side too, but the texture is not as prominent. So let's go ahead and just get this loaded in here. I'm going to open the binder rings, and we'll just put this in. And under my left hand, you can see, well, you can't see it now, sorry, but there are pockets there. You could make this like kind of like a wallet. It's got like credit card size pockets in there, and it also has the larger flap. The entire frame of pockets will fit things such as more paper, paintings, maybe a really small flat palette of paints. And that little loop on the side there can hold your brush or your pen. There, now you can kind of see the pockets up there on the top half. So this is the same idea as the other journal I made, and I was so happy to just find one, so I wanted to compare them. Now it's time to talk about these paints. Now they are new this year, so you may or may not have been aware of these. They may or may not have been on your radar, but I really like the Gansai Tambi paints by Kuretake. I really like Kuretake as a brand. I like their Zig watercolor brushes. So whenever one of their products comes out, I kind of calls my attention to it. I really enjoy working with these products, and I've never been disappointed with anything. According to the packaging, these are really cool granulators. Now they give you that extra one there so that you can mix. I ended up not using that, but you'll see that as it goes on. So when we're looking at these just in the pans, they kind of all look the same, right? Well, let's go ahead and get our page labeled here, and then I can tell you, I did some translating through my phone. I don't know if you guys knew that, if you just put your camera, at least on an iPhone anyway, if you just put your camera over the foreign text, it will pick up that as text, and then there's a little button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can click on that, and then there's a button on the left-hand corner that will show up that says translate. And it will translate it, but you may have to make a screenshot of that so that you can make it larger and see what it is that you are translating. Now, the accuracy of those translations might be up for debate. I think that there's a lot of nuances in Chinese and Japanese languages that just aren't used in English. So at least that's my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that some of those translations are just kind of not quite on the mark, but I'll show those to you. The brushes that I'm using today are really great. They are by Kanchan Call, and I just stumbled across them, and I got to tell you, they are magnificent. They're all synthetic, and I love them for painting florals, which is kind of what we're going to end up doing today a little bit. I'll have a sped up demonstration, and then the full-length tutorial will be available for my channel members. So this first one here goes as number 771. It is called Fantasy Green and Red. However, on the back of the box, it is called Aurora Red. So not really sure. And then the other text on the bottom of the palette there, what that says is, from green to red, I'll separate it. So what they're trying to say, obviously, is that these are separating pigments. And they do. And they do say that they're basically 2 pigments on each one. This one here is Magic Green, 772, Peach, Magic Green and Peach. But it looks purple to me. It says from green to pink, I'll separate it. And then the other color that it's given is the Phantom Green Peach or Aurora Pink. So the color names, I mean, we're not really going to glean a lot of information from that, but I will go ahead and keep reading them to you because I think they're so interesting. 773, the one I'm working on now, this is the one that really differs from the other 4. Fantasy Green. From green to vermilion, I'll separate it. And that is called the Aurora, Aurora Orange is what they call this one. And then moving on down to 774, it is the Fantasy Kingju. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. From blue to vermilion, I'll separate it. And this one really did separate out well. The two, they all separated well. I'll give you comments as we're going on here. And that one is called Aurora Blue. And the caption is from blue to vermilion, I'll separate it. And then finally, we have Fantasy Green Peach, number 775, which is from blue to pink, I'll separate it. And it is also called Aurora Violet. So if we just assume they're all named Aurora, from left to right, they are Aurora Red, Aurora Pink, Aurora Orange, Aurora Blue, and Aurora Violet. Now, frankly, I don't think there's a good range of colors here. They all look really very similar. Really neat separation though, and you can kind of see it coming through. It almost looks neon, and this is where I'm a little bit skeptical, and I don't know for a fact if this is true. They say it's pigments. It really looks more like that Brusho to me. If you've ever used that, it's a little powdered pigment-based, or excuse me, dye-based watercolor that is in a little container, like a little pill bottle container, and you shake it out on water and the colors just expand and separate. And it's really pretty cool. And from what I just said about this, not knowing if it's a pigment or a dye, to me that makes no difference whatsoever. If you are one that you need to be absolutely sure that you're using light fast watercolors, I would write to the company and ask some questions, because all of the research that I have been able to run across doesn't say one way or the other. If you know for a fact and you can cite something in the comments, then let me know, because I've been on the web for over an hour and I cannot find any information. Probably the information that I did find, probably where my answer lies, is in something that I can't figure out how to translate in a whole web page. So at any rate, let's just have fun with these, okay? Because that's what watercolor is. We're just going to have fun today. We're just going to play. You can take any granulating watercolor and mix it with any watercolor at all. So what I'm doing, I've got a few watercolors left out here from my last project. And right now this one is a Lucas, I think, and it's just yellow ochre. So I just wanted to see what this is like when you mix yellow ochre with that first one. Now, in the palette that I'm using, it really looks kind of, you know, yucky. It's like a dirty mauve or something. But on the paper, it acts so differently. With every brush stroke in one direction, a certain color comes up, and then when I go in the opposite direction, a different color comes up. And that is true of all of these. So these pigments, if you can believe it, they're almost directional with the way that you stroke. It's like, at least in my experience from what I tested here today, I don't know if this is true for everyone, for all these pigments, but from what I tested today, I feel like these pigments, these paints, when you go up and down with these swatches like this on your brush, I felt like they were almost like interference colors once you mix them with a typical watercolor. So let's see what other mixes I've got here that I can play with. First up, I've got a chromium oxide green, and my choices for these colors, my reason for choosing these colors was not to really try and create a beautiful mix. It was just to see how these acted when they're mixed with a color that I normally probably wouldn't mix it with. So this is the one that is the chromium oxide green and color number 712, which is the Aurora pink. Same thing. It's like one direction, the color looks one way and with the brush, and then in the opposite direction, the color looks a different way. Now, when I said interference, it's not like if you're looking at it at one angle, it's going to read a different color than if you look at it from an opposite angle. I just mean that very physical up and down of the brush. So for instance, every time on the top one there, every time I pulled the brush down, more pink showed up. Every time I pulled the brush up, then the yellow ochre kind of showed up. So those are really kind of cool. This is really kind of fun to play with. Let me set this aside for a minute because look what's happening in the palette. These little ceramic bowls, by the way, are really cool, and I'll link to those. I'll tell you about them in 1 second, but look at how the pigment separates inside these bowls. I mean, that's really kind of cool. I like watching the pigment separate and play, and in this ceramic bowl where I've got a little bit of workspace, what these are intended for is for sauces or snacks. I got them from like a restaurant section on Amazon, so I can link to these if you're interested, because if you were to buy a stack of these ceramic palettes with the little lid on it, you know, those great little Japanese palettes that they have, if you were to purchase one of those in an art store, they would cost you an awful lot of money. But here, they're extremely affordable, and I think in the set, I think I got 24 of them. So I put a dozen upstairs for us to have snacks out when we have you know, people over. They hold a perfect amount of little nuts or little candies or whatever, and then the rest of them I have down here in my art supplies. So let's see what we can do now. We'll mix this middle one with ultramarine. And this one was a lot of fun. Now, ultramarine, as we know, is naturally granulating pigment. I didn't necessarily choose these paints for their granulating capabilities. I just wanted to see how these Gansai Tambi granulators acted with conventional paints. And I really like this one, so I'm going to try and dump some of it out here and just try and get as much on there as I can. The biggest thing that I noticed, the biggest takeaway, is that these paints, the Gansai Tambi, they act a lot like the Boku Undo inks, the Sumi-e inks. They have a very soft look to them. That's what I mean. They're the Gansai Tambi traditional watercolors that you buy from them, the Kuretake Gansai Tambi in the boxes. Those have shellac in them. These are called Gansai Tambi, which means they're made in the traditional method. However, I don't see the sheen. I may have just put it on thin enough that I didn't quite get that to come up. But to me, these look very, very soft and very subtle. So let's just clean off that palette. And I want to give you a heads up, if my rinse water stays in frame, check that out, because it honestly, when I was all done, it kind of looked like an oil slick when I was done with all the different colors in there. The red pigment sunk to the bottom on all of these. When I dumped out my water, the base of that container was really, really red. and it's that bright vermilion red. This one is being mixed with raw sienna, and this is number 774, which is the Aurora blue. The previous one was the Aurora orange that I mixed with the ultramarine. So just really trying to find out what these pigments do when they're mixed with conventional paints, like I said, and they really do play nicely together. Nothing separates in a weird way on the page. The pigments are all married together, and they all lay down very nicely. So that part of it is really good. You don't have to worry about how these are going to act. When I get to the painting, I ended up using a Caran d'Ache watercolor pencil as well, and they worked fine with that also. So I would think that if you're getting something like this just to augment what you have, and you really want to see what it's like to mix some of these granulating paints with some of your regular paints, you know, these would be a good investment. They're not that expensive. I think the link that I can put below for the United States anyway is St. Louis Art Supply, and I think they run about $18.95 for 5 pans. And these are generously sized pans. They're just a little bit bigger than a full pan. I haven't weighed them, so they might be the same weight in grams as a full pan of paint, but you're getting a good amount of paint. Plus, you get that extra little plastic palette there so that you can mix. So now I've got a cobalt turquoise. We know that cobalt's a really good granulator, so let's see what happens when we mix the Aurora violet with the cobalt turquoise. Right away, this is my favorite color. I love that. I love the separation. Look how wonderful that just slides right off the brush. And this one comes out really nice, very soft, very lovely. I could see painting hydrangeas or forget-me-nots or anything like that with this mix. This is really quite nice. And the other cool thing about when you have a mix like this with a granulating pigment, you know, if you're going to mix it wet on wet, what it does is those granulators will separate out from the pigment, or the pigment that you've mixed it with, I mean, so that it really does make for a fun, beautiful mix. You know, since you're going to hear the word granulation or granulating or granulator from me an awful lot in this video, I guess I should explain what that is. Pigments, the sizes of the individual particles, the very, very tiny sizes, they're different size and weight. Some of the pigments are naturally heavier than others. And that's why that rougher texture water paper really works so well, is because what happens when you have that granulating effect is that those heavier pigments sink down into the deeper textures of the watercolor paper. And that is what we saw in the very beginning when we swatched these out, how the colors separated apart. You really see how those colors, the heavier pigments, are sinking to the bottom. And as I told you in my rinse water, that red in here, the vermilion, really does sink pretty accurately. So you do get some good separation with these granulating paints. Okay, we've got one more to do, and that is going to be the 771, which is the Aurora red with the Aurora orange. And let's see what that looks like. And sure enough, look at that deep wine color. So these are really versatile, really fun to use, lots of great mixing capacities, and it'll just open your palette to just a whole new array of colors. There's some things that it says on the back of the box that I can read you, the translated version. Okay, so just take this statement for what it's worth. It says it is a facial paint. Okay, I'm going to interject here. Don't put it on your face. It's not meant for that. I think here face means something else. I think it means solid. A facial paint that can be expressed fantastically by separating colors. Depending on the type of paper, the color separation and oozing are different, and that's true. So this paper has a good amount of texture, which is why I wanted to use that for demonstration purposes, is to see you need that texture, those peaks and valleys in watercolor paper in order for the granulation to really do its thing. Rough textured paper is by far the best to use for granulating pigments, but this has a pretty good texture on it, so I think we're going to be okay. Hot press, you might be a little pressed to see some of that granulating separation come up. Let's see here, what else does it say? It says it can be used for all types of artwork, such as illustration, brush writing, calligraphy, and painting. So these are completely versatile. Let's just have a little play here. I'm using the Kanchan Call brush. It's number 8. These are all synthetic brushes, but they have a beautiful point. And in this section here, I'm making a peony, and I didn't quite get it finished. I ended up just letting it dry, and then I finished it off camera. These work like any other watercolor, very easy to manipulate, decent flow where it's not going to get away from you, but you can still control it. I really enjoyed working with these. I had a good time. This particular peony, we're just going to let it dry off camera, and then I'll finish it and I'll show you a still photo of it at the end. While the peony was drying, I was just kind of thinking, what else do I want to try and paint? And I'm just doing some really super simple roses here. This portion is sped up, but I'm just trying to see how the paints behave, and I can't trip them up. I think that they are very easy to use. They go onto the brush very well. They mix with just about anything I want to throw at them, and I really think they're a delight. I don't see anything negative so far, except for they're all very close in range. I think that if you were to really look into some granulating pigments, this would be a great, like super granulators, that kind of thing. This little set would be a great set to start with, and then you might want to branch out into some of the other really super granulating brands. I know Schmincke Horadam has several. In fact, I have a playlist of those, and I can put that in the upper right-hand corner here as well. So you guys can check those out. If you really are in the market for some super granulating, then these would be a good one to compare to. Price-wise, though, these can't be beat, and they sure are fun. And you can see I didn't want to quit working with them. They all kind of live in that purple, rosy red range for me, which is great. But I really thought maybe that there would be some more variety. So that's my only negative here. And even as you can see on the swatch sheet here, if you can see it, I'm sorry, I'll pick it up again at the end, but you can see on the swatch sheet that the finished colors just really aren't that different, and they really do look very similar in the palette here. So like I said before, I will have to label those just in case things go awry and these fall out, which is probably pretty likely in my life. Let me take this one out here, and then we'll create one more page that would be more of an actual painting. Now, I know I've got this sped up again, so I hope I'm not making a lot of you seasick, but this particular portion of the video is going to be a full-length tutorial for channel members. So members, I've got lots of fun stories to tell you about this picture and a whole lot more to show you. I'll create a little album for you so you can have a ton of pictures to create your own paintings from. This particular wildflower was taken, this picture was taken by my daughter in the Florissant fossil beds in Colorado. It's down in Teller County, and it's so cool because it's got a lot of fossilized trees. And this year, the honeybees, all different kinds of species, I don't know if honeybees is the right thing to call them, but bees, all different kinds of species are around. We've seen so many different colored bees just right here in Parker. But down here in Florissant, they were incredible, and so many wildflowers. So she had a heyday with the pictures, and I'm going to share all of her pictures with channel members. So if that's something that interests you, to have a full-time tutorial on something like this, plus, gosh, you get Happy Mail from me. You can also have early access to reviews. I do member shout-outs. Member comments get answered in a priority fashion. So all kinds of really cool, fun things, just like Patreon, except for it's right here on YouTube. So if that's something that interests you, I will have a link in the description below where you can learn more about membership with my channel. And if that's something that isn't quite up your alley right now, then I really appreciate any kind of like, share, or follow, because those kinds of things certainly do help my channel to grow. I just want to give each and every one of you watching, if you're still with me, thank you so much. I have, this is coming upon my anniversary on YouTube, but this will be my second anniversary, I think. And I'm really enjoying this. You guys really make this all worthwhile. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you. Going back to the painting now, one of the things that I was very impressed with was that these colors lifted off fairly well. They do tend to stain, but you could still lift them off enough. And I know a lot of that has to do with the paper, but these worked really well. I like the paper that's in this little Lightwish book. I know a lot of you have heard of Lightwish, and this particular folio does come with acid-free 100% cotton watercolor paper. But it didn't feel bad at all. It felt like a nice little paper, and I didn't have any trouble working with it. I enjoyed the process very much. I'm going over all the techniques that I can think of with watercolor. I'm doing wet and wet, dry over wet, wet into damp. I'm blending on I'm letting colors, charge into one another using these granulators as well as the conventional watercolors that I'm using. And everything is just working. It's just seamless. It's going very, very well. So now what I'm going to do is just grab this watercolor pencil. It's a Caran d'Ache in Carmine Lake. And you can see what I mean with this soft taupey pink color that emerges. It's very interesting because it almost, it can read brown or it can read more towards the pink. It's a good color. I'm liking how it works on here. However, I'm going very lightly. I really didn't want to leave a lot of pigment lines, but they sure did hold on to this paper. I haven't really done a whole review on Caran d'Ache watercolor pencils because I have my Faber-Castell Arbrector and I really love those. If you're interested in that review, there will be a card up in the corner on that one because they are really some of my favorite, and I had a whole lot of fun drawing Darth Vader with those. At any rate, going back to this, I am spreading the love of the Caran d'Ache tone around with that middle one, and that one is the Aurora Orange. And I just thought I really like the overall brown that goes with that. It just kind of was a forest floor type color. And I really just had so much fun putting this all together. I like how everything really just went well together. This paper, you can really see here, did warp a lot. But not so bad that I'm worried about it. In fact, if your watercolor paper ever does warp, you can absolutely just iron it on your ironing board. Just turn it face down. I like to put a cotton cloth over it and either mist that cloth or put some light droplets of water, spray some misty water on the back of your painting and then just iron over it. And I do iron that on the cotton setting. So there's lots of ways to straighten out your watercolor paper, or of course you could let it lay under some books for a few days. So here we have it. This is the Fluorescent Fossil Beds Wildflower that I will put the name up to if I can find it. One of many. And don't forget, for all of you channel members out there, I will give you access to this photo as well as all of the other photos that my daughter took that day. They were absolutely lovely. I have a whole wildflower album to share with you guys, and we can work on those individually if you want to, or you can just do with those photos what you like. You can practice from them because I don't know, somehow painting wildflowers is really relaxing, and I hope that this particular video was relaxing for you guys. Maybe it inspired you to try painting your own wildflowers today with some granulating paints. Maybe those paints that you choose will be the Kuretake Gansai Tambi Granulating Watercolors. Here it is when I've outlined it with that gold pen. I really like how these look with gold. The purple and the gold just really make things jump, especially with that green too. So I was very pleased with the gold. It's just an acrylic liner with a 0.7 millimeter tip. And I was very pleased with how that all turned out. So you guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the Gansai Tambi Granulating Colors. And if you have been looking for something to augment your regular watercolors with, this might be just the ticket for you. Right now, I think they're a little bit difficult to find in some areas. I did have to order mine from Japan, although they were very affordable and I didn't have to pay that much shipping. So I'll put the link, the local link in the United States where you can find them. And if I can find that link of where I purchased them from, I'll put that as well. All of the links below will be affiliate links, but you're welcome to click on those or do your own research, whatever you guys want to do. Here is that finished peony. I just love the way it turned out. It's just so delicate and beautiful with that gold liner. And then of course we've got a still photo here of the wildflower. I hope you guys enjoyed this demonstration today. Give me your thoughts in the comments and let me know if you've already tried these paints or if it's something that you've had on your wish list. Okay, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you next time. Bye now.